podcast world. Welcome to Chats with Baba. My name is James Young, and I am the convener of this period of time that we'll spend together. The purpose of this experience is to inform and empower parents of young Black children. The information is applicable to all children. I specifically focus on Black children because when we look at some of the data and information in terms of preparation for school, literacy, etc., our children are behind. So the intent is to empower parents who are the first and foremost teachers in the lives of children. To inform parents is to enable them to release the natural genius in Black children. Black children have untapped and undeveloped gifts. The quality of experience and exposure lays the foundation for life. We want to move from miseducation to education. Our goal is to strive for excellence. Over the last several weeks, as you know, I've been talking about laying the foundation for the teaching of reading. And in doing that, I go over some things that you want to instill in children. For example, I say one of the desires is to have children develop certain attitude and behaviors towards learning. And I say to you as parents and a listening audience, when you're working with young children, there's certain skills and or behaviors you want to develop early on, and they will sustain themselves over a period of time. For example, you want to get children to pay attention, to listen, to follow directions, to start and complete a task. By doing that consistently, they are developing habits of the mind. And the consistency and doing in a way that they're developing a positive attitude, then over time, these things are reinforced and they are learned. And from the perspective of having support from you to enable them to do this. So I will, we'll continue along those lines. But today I want to talk a little bit, I want to shift a little bit from reading and talk about developing skills in mathematics. When I say that, people get quiet because many folks have not done well in mathematics. And what we don't want to do is, if you have an attitude towards math, is to transfer that same attitude to your children. Oh, I didn't do well, so don't expect. No. What we want to do is to have children develop a healthy attitude towards the learning of mathematics. It's a content area, it's a skill. That being said, it can be learned. Look at the movie Hidden Figures. Here's a group of Black women. God knows without them where the space program may be or not be today. It was their understanding of math and its application that enabled the space program to move as rapidly as it did back in the day. It was their knowledge of mathematics. Now, where did that come from? It was established in the home. So I want to go back to what can be done early on. Having said that, let me just talk a little bit about some other things to talk about the importance of early literacy. Let's look at getting through preschool, kindergarten, primary, elementary, and ready for the middle grades. So when students get to the middle grades, they should have a solid foundation, because as they get into high school now, they're talking about algebra, geometry, calculus, trigonometry. All of that goes back to the foundation upon which math has been developed, as well as their attitude towards mathematics. So it's important to understand what's expected when they get to those higher grades in mathematics. For example, children should know the names of numerals. All right, from 0 to 30, they should know that. Children should be able to write numerals from 0 through 20. They should be able to count single digits from 1 to a certain level, by 2s to a certain level, by 5s to a certain level. That is knowing their multiplication tables. They should be able to classify and make comparison of objects. They should be able to collect data and use it to make decisions. And I'll come back to all of what I'm talking about. They should also show an interest in solving mathematical problems by using information to arrive at a logical outcome. They should have some understanding of measurement. They should have some understanding of time, some understanding of temperatures, thermometers. They should be able to make estimates and measure quantities using non-standard units, such as blocks or paper clips. How many paper clips would it take to make a foot or to measure a foot? They should show some understanding of the calendar and times. They should know the days of the week and months of the year. They should have some basic understanding of cultural awareness as it relates to math. They should know significant events and when they happen and over what period of time. They should recognize maps, and they should recognize locations on maps. They should be able to identify places and locations, et cetera, et cetera. For an example, right now I have my students planning an itinerary. And I asked them, do they understand the geographical layout of America? And, you know, they kind of looked at me quizzically. I said, in how many contiguous states are there? Well, you'd have to have some understanding of the language. When we talk about the contiguous states, we talk about those states that are collectively connected. Oh, 48, right. So which leaves what? Alaska and Hawaii. And I was trying to help them to understand that in America, there are federal regions, whether you're talking about agriculture, whether you're talking about the taxes, whether you're talking about health, it doesn't matter. The geographical regions remain the same. For example, we look at where we're located in Atlanta, in Georgia, which is region 4. And in region 4, it has all of the southeastern states. So my point is, you have an understanding of how many states, which is a mathematical term, make up this region, and how many, again, a mathematical term, how many regions in America there are. Well, once you internalize these concepts, they don't change. It just holds true over time. And I'm saying that to say, once children learn math terminology and math concepts and have a healthy attitude towards them, it sustains them through life. At Clark Atlanta University some years ago, we had a professor there who was a mathematical genius who grew up in Alabama and who came from parents who had less than elementary school education. But he went on to get a PhD in mathematics. At the time of his undergraduate studies, he had a double major, chemistry and math. And I asked him, why did he choose math over chemistry? Well, he said, math has to do with reasoning and logic and its application. and chemistry, it's a lot of formulas and so forth and so on. So he stuck with math. That same reasoning and logic starts at an early age. Let me give an example. If you had a group of young children and you gave one of them a bag of jelly beans or a bag of cookies and asked him to share this with the people sitting in the group, one for you, 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 one for you. He or she would go through that bag until they were divided. Okay, he would slowly but surely go through that process and procedure of sharing until each person had a pile of cookies or a pile of jelly beans in front of them. It's a slow, methodical process, but that's the way that they would arrive at that, using his or her logic of how to share this. It's a slow developmental process. Remember that in math, the concepts that you're learning don't change. 1 + 1 will always be 2, and so forth and so on. What you want is for your children to develop habits of the mind relative to math terminology, math concepts, and that process of that developing of the mind, if you will, excuse me, is a process. That process includes providing experiences, opportunities, and exposure. Let me say that again. That process includes providing experiences, opportunities, and exposure with math concepts, math terminology. And as they're doing this, and they're doing it in such a way that they're learning and enjoying math, they are developing habits of the mind as they relate to mathematics. I'm being rather deliberate because this generation will grow up and live in a time where knowledge of math is required, something beyond just ordinary arithmetic, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Having said that, but that is the foundation for higher math. Knowing those concepts, knowing that terminology, and so forth and so on. What if they don't? What if they don't learn it? What if they have a negative attitude? Having been in education as long as I have and working with children, students, families, and you don't have that math, you pay a price for it. It limits what your opportunities are relative to the application of mathematics. It limits your opportunities in terms of even getting in higher education. So it's important that during the early years, the formative years, that time is spent on exposing children, providing opportunities and experiences where they are developing mathematical knowledge and mathematical skills, and they know how to apply it. Let me just share this with you so that you'll, this is not to frighten you, but it's just it's fact. What the research says is just this: children who begin school with low levels of math knowledge are at the risk of failing or falling behind. What some of the data show that 60% of fourth graders in the United States, 60% of the fourth graders in the United States are not proficient in math. Let's think about this now. This is elementary school. 60%, more than half of the children going through the fourth grade throughout the United States are not proficient in math. So that means as they progress through school, they are unprepared. And that means that teachers face an enormous challenge of trying to shore up their foundation for mathematics. So what I'm saying is, let's just stay with this thought for just a moment. They take the same data when it says 60% of fourth graders are not proficient in math. What it says is that the evidence show that when math skills at the entry level, they are strong predictors of success or failure in their education. An extensive body of research, empirical evidence shows that math skills at school entry are strong predictors of success or failure as they're moving through school. Now, I don't say that to frighten you. I say that to say, hey, we have to pay attention. More attention must be paid to laying out the early foundation in mathematical knowledge, the early foundation in mathematical skills, the early foundation in terms of an attitude towards mathematics. I'm reminded of Dr. Shabazz, who single-handedly produced more MAs and PhDs in mathematics than the rest of the universities in America. This is a Black mathematician, and anybody in America that has a PhD probably came through him. He was honored at the White House for the work that he's done, etc. And I'm saying that to say this. When I talked to him about what he did, what he said was that on the first day of class, he asked the question, how many of you like math? How many of you don't? All who don't like math, I'm asking you to withdraw from my class. His point was, as a teacher, he didn't have time to unlock or to deal with the hurdles that prevented you from not liking math. So my point is that during the early years, as children are developing, if you have an attitude towards math, don't transfer that to your children. Well, I didn't do well in math. No, let's just talk about high expectations and move slowly through the teaching of mathematical knowledge and skills. For example, if you have understand the nature of how children learn, they learn through touch and they learn through visual experiences. So if you are teaching the concept of two, you have two items, 1, 2, 1, 2, constantly saying that, 1, 2. So you're teaching visually, and you're teaching also an internalization of what that means. 2 items, 2, 1, 2. You're also teaching order and sequence. 1 comes before 2, and so forth and so on. They're also teaching counting. So there's a combination of things that's going on simultaneously. And again, the idea as a parent of the child, you want to be patient. Okay, you want to be patient with the child, especially laying the foundation for early literacy, whether it's in reading, science, math, or social studies. So with that, I'm going to, hopefully you can internalize what I've said, because over the next few sessions of the podcast, we will be talking about the habits, developing habits of the mind as it relates to math knowledge, habits of the mind as it relates to math skills, and habits of the mind as it relates to how one feels about what it is that they're learning. I will say this to you as parents. One of the things that I would strongly suggest in the teaching of some math without directly teaching math is to do board games. In board games, let's say that there's 3 or 4 of you playing. Well, there's an order: who goes first, who goes second, who goes third, who goes fourth. There's taking of turns. There's sharing. Okay. There's an order. There's a sequencing. There's counting. All of these are math terms and math concepts that can be taught without directly teaching them. They are part of the of playing of the game of mathematics. Of the board games. So I hope this has been somewhat informative, so that as we continue on this pace over the next few weeks, we'll come back to, again, the notion of the processes that's involved in laying the foundation for mathematics. You also want to pay attention to the other things helping children to develop habits of the mind, paying attention, listening, following directions, start and completing a task. With that, this concludes our chat with Baba on the teaching of concepts in mathematics. Signing off.